GSR Radio. It's the perfect place for the family.
Well, okay, we want to welcome everybody to Trumpet Sound Radio, coming to you live from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas. 700 beautiful island rocks and keys with beautiful sandy beaches and balmy breezes. Just keeping you cool, some 80 degrees thereabouts around the country right now. I'm Bishop Arnold Josie, and of course, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, Bishop Philip McPhee. Yeah, Mark, we talking and bishoping you right tonight. And of course, we are joined today by the incomparable Bishop Clarence Harris. And now we're going to be talking to one of God's choicest servants, and he's going to be telling us about not Marvin Gaye, sorry, I mean, what's going on. He's going to tell us what's going on. It's amazing, you know, Bishop.
What is going on?
Yeah, from 1971, Marvin did that thing about mother, mother, mother. So many of you crying, and brother, brother, brother. So many of you dying, and it's just like today. Hey, just like today. And so, what's happening, Bishop?
Well, I am truly blessed. I am in my office, and I've been really missing the great bishop who has done a tremendous job doing things pertaining to this Trumpet Sound broadcast that has become a very popular and favorite pastime, informative, enlarging holistic program.
And now that you're back, you look so well rested and revived, man. You look like hallelujah, thine the glory.
Yes, I feel you. I feel you.
Yes, yes. So listen, Bishop,
Yes, sir.
as we get started today to talk about a couple of things, the Bible tells us, a matter of fact, Jesus said that just as it was in the days of Noah, the conditions would be similar in the time when the Son of Man is about to make his return. How do we tie that in with everything that's happening in and around us nowadays?
Well, before the events that happened in the book of Genesis, pursuant to Noah, as you clearly stated, explicitly stated that those days would return, that the events that have circumstances that occurred prior to the flood, those same circumstances and event will take place in the world today. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show just a few images here on the screen, and let the audience kind of look at these here, because what is going on today is planned, it's methodical, it's systematic. It's not by haphazardness or circumstance that the things are going on in the world today. We're just looking at a systematic destruction of our educational system, a destruction of our government, a destruction also, you might say, of our churches, religious structures, through a new world order in the area of religion. There's a movement also to destroy the family. And the family is the foundation of every society. It is the first foundation that we talked about earlier, established by God. And since the family is vehemently under attack, this is what was done also prior to the flood. The economic structures today also being attacked. And consequently, what we're looking at, the establishment of a new world order. Everything that's going on in each nation around the world has been set up, as you can see on your screen. It's called hegelic dialectic deception. That it doesn't matter which political party one belongs to. It's seen the oligarchs that control the global system control both parties, to the right and to the left, even as it is, as you see in America. The Republicans and the Democrats all working together through secret society to dismantle the family, destroy our children, and also create eugenics, population reduction. Because of all the things that are happening, most people are not aware of this here. And it was the fact that Lenin said, Vladimir Lenin, he was the founder of communism with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1912, 13, and 14. And he said that, give me your children, and in 5 years, I will change your nation. And right now, there's balance in our schools, balance in our homes, balance in our communities. And it's not by mere circumstance. But tonight, I believe that our audience and those that are here will see unequivocally that all of this is systematic, it is planned, but it's also in proportion to God's divine plan for the end times. As you can see on the screen right here, it said, give me your children, and in one generation will change your nation. And that's what's happening. The indoctrination of our children, they are like sheeple and being manipulated and controlled about things that they know not of, and divorce, the blended families, all these things are destroying the family. I'm going to say a few facts and I'll stop and we make some comments about this here. Fact number one, children living in female-headed homes with no spouse, all right, no male spouse, have a poverty rate of almost 50%, which is 4 times the rate of children living with married couples. Another fact, fathers involved in schools and with their children have a higher GPA than those who do not have fathers in the home. Another fact, women with fathers are more likely to have children, all right, with fathers, and also they would abstain rather from sexual intimacy. They would get their fellowship or their love, they would find it from their father and not in all the wrong places. Another fact, children raised in a father absent home are more likely to experience behavioral problems. Children are running our schools, they run the school board, the classroom, the principals, and our communities. They run the churches. But the fact is, 1 in 4 children live in homes without a dad. That means 75% of all the homes in America are fatherless. Therefore, the violence ensued. We discussed these things earlier. Another fact is that when a dad is involved with the children and their life situation, they're much more emotionally stable and socially well fit and well-being, which means they don't have IEPs, they're not in special education classes, but disruptors, behavior disorders, and all other pseudoscientific labels our children are given. And the last one I would say is that men, all right, who did not have a father are more likely to be absent fathers themselves. These things are the precursors. These things are the things that create balance in our nation, balance in our school, because a woman can raise her son the best way she can, but she cannot impute unto him how to be a man. And even more so, it's clearly stated that women get their security, from their husband. I'm amazed how many women are afraid of spiders, bugs, bees, things like that, and mice. But men is no big problem. It's a shame when you have grown men running from insects, you know.
Oh, God.
And so the attributes and the characteristics of their mother many times in her fears and her emotional outlet is poured into a son. And he becomes more of a woman, more so than a man, because she's going to give to him what she herself is. So these are some of the facts. The fathers from the homes has set the stage for violence. But this is also what David said in Psalm 109:9. He said, let the children be fatherless and his wife a widow. He said, that's how you destroy a nation. The men will rise up, rebellion and disorder will follow. This is happening in our country and around the world. What do the great men of God have to say about some of these facts?
Well,
No, go ahead, Doc.
I am to the point where I think I just feel like the church now have to re-examine our platform in terms of reaching and changing the world. And we must start basically with fundamental things that have brought us to the place where we were once so meaningful in ministry, meaningful in family life, meaningful in terms of what we do as father, as mothers and training of our children and grandchildren, something Pastor Harris has gone wrong. And it seems as though it's the spiritual leaders are the last to discover it in our lives. Our focus are on wrong things. The brotherly love among pastors are not here no longer. The respect for leadership is no longer. Truth told, I'm flabbergasted about where Thomas is they're going to achieve as Christians. And I think we must now ask ourselves the question, where did we go wrong? And how can we come back to where God expects His church to be? It's frightening to me, and God knows I talk to Him so regularly now because I am so much concerned. I remember we were in love with one another, respect one another. Families were tied up in a Christian relationship, mission and Calvary, Calvary and transfiguration, transfiguration and Zion, Zion and friendship, friendship with Salem, with St. John's. It seems as though we have lost a desire to be concerned with one another. And a lot of things are falling through the cracks. Our junior churches, our junior membership dwindled down to little or nothing. And we gotta be concerned, Pastor Harrison. We await a word that will transform this whole idea. I know Bishop might not feel the way I feel, but I'm telling you, I'm having problems.
Well, I know Bishop Josie.
concerns.
I know Bishop Josie. I know your mic is kind of breaking up quite a bit, but I do know that there's a lot of problems. But I want to share tonight that this is not by accident. But have no fear, the Lord is here. Bishop Josie, what's your spin on all this here?
Yeah, but before you get in, I want us to go back to something that we touched earlier when we started to talk about these problems. The violence, according to what we began with, as in Noah's day, the violence, and we've seen it all around the place, Doc, and you mentioned it. But something, that you mentioned in one of our earlier discussions coming from Psalm 58, and that's been bothering me, Doc, because it's like somehow either the church doesn't know it or we're not believing it and preaching and teaching the way we ought to. Because when we get into the schools and try to get to these children, based on what we heard over there in Psalm 58, it's already late. It's already late. We put it back this way in the Bahamas. You late it. You know what I'm saying? So how do we tie that in? I was going over something this past week. Every morning I get up, Doc, and I watch the news from all over the world. There's some like 53 conflicts, armed conflicts, 32 rather, armed conflicts going on worldwide. And you got the stuff like Sudan, where the brothers are fighting each other. Then you've got the ethnic stuff going on. How do we deal with that? Where does the church come in? But I need to throw that back at you because you alerted me to that text, and I need to find how do we get it back?
Okay. I think what I'm going to do is really expand. If you give me about 10 minutes, I'm going to expand how all this fits in together with Noah as you introduce. And I'm going to show you how the children are being programmed, the adults are being programmed, and everyone in the world is being programmed by the respective countries as they prepare. All right. They are preparing for their global system. If you look on your screen, what do you see? You see the word psyops. Psyops are simply psychological operations being put upon the masses. Video games, real life video games, psychological preparation and training children to become killers and murderers. Everyone will not be. But what they're looking for, our governments, I won't identify any particular, but governments are looking for individuals that they can use through such games as see right here. A lot of kids know this game very well. It's called Call of Duty, Black Ops. Black Ops
Oh,
is actually operation done by governments to fund projects, secret operations, and kids are being introduced to these topics, don't even know the significance of what Black Op is.
mm-hmm.
These videos and indoctrinations are preparing to locate kids who they can choose as Manchurian candidates, like Jason Bourne in the Bourne series. If you ever seen any of those movies, these are
Yeah.
individuals that the government use to what we call false flag operations. A false flag operation is have a mass killing and the person shows up, like in Colorado or a certain school, Columbine, or wherever it may be. And these individual young people have been conditioned and trained to do what they're doing. This is
Doug, before
all.
you go, can I just interrupt right there?
Yes, sir.
As we talk about that, the evidence could be clearly seen in the Belgian school shooting a couple of days ago.
Yes,
If
sir.
you saw the schematics
Mm-hmm.
that put forward by this 13-year-old child,
Right.
and he has the list of priorities, who dies first. There's a
Right.
13-year-old boy, Doc.
Correct.
Now you're putting some meat
Yes, sir.
on that bone,
Yes, sir.
because this is where they're getting it from.
Yes, these are schools globally of operations and training to create havoc, disorder, and chaos around the planet. Here in America, America has 5% of the world's population, 330 million people, but had 25% of the world prisons. Our private prisons are designed to take the Black population, Hispanic population out of circulation and reduce their elements within the population, and also to the females will not have opportunity to mate with one another. These private prisons, individuals are given CUSIP numbers in the trailer on Wall Street. And through these private prisons in the US, CCA, one of the largest in the US, located in Nashville, Tennessee, what it does is that if the government does not help them fill those beds in arresting young men, what happened? The government must pay for those empty beds. And so it's $1 billion business to put mass, what we call peonage, or putting people in prisons so they can work in camps, taking them out of the population so they can't procreate, which is a form of slavery all over again. But most people can't think at this level. But you look at the violence in the gangs. Where do the gangs come from? Where do they get their weapons from? You get a $500, $600 9mm gun, they buy for $25 and $50. How can they do that? Someone
Yeah.
investing in these products so they can put them on the streets so the Negroes, low life, blue collar, uneducated, can kill themselves systematically. This is all by design. And the same organizations that create the gangs are the same ones also at the higher levels that run your government, using the same hand symbols and secret codes, etc. So with these things set up, we have a major problem. It's way beyond the context of the church. We call this MK Ultra, mind control. Mind control. You have also men with music that are designed of
Mm-hmm.
sex and violence, that
Mm-hmm.
parents
Mm-hmm.
and people in church allow their kids to listen to the profanity and the vulgarity, and they think nothing of it. What you sow in your heart, what you sow in your mind, you become recipients of that which you receive, which you feed yourself. That becomes your diet. Look at these little kids here on the screen with guns. Where do they get
Yeah.
these guns from? Someone is bringing these guns in the communities and trafficking these specifically to take people out. All of this is by design. The churches don't supply the weapons, they don't supply the drugs, but we allow our children to participate, don't educate our communities, our young men to turn from these vices as they create means to destroy our homes and our families, making our kids the terror element. One other element before I shift on and stop again is that in the Black family in America, it wasn't done in the Bahamas because in the 1830s, Bahamas got its independence. I mean, should I say, in the slavery rather. However, even though slavery was supposed to be ended in America in 1865 with the 13th Amendment, And the 13th Amendment had a peonage code in there, said that if a person was arrested and put back in prison, they can be put back into slavery. That went on for another 100 years until about 1975 in the United States. Look at your screen. What Black females need to realize, they need to get out of the feminist movement and don't be deceived. The feminist movement is an argument and a dispute between the white female and her husband, her uncle, her daddy, her brother, and her cousin. They are the ones trying to exercise equal parity with those of their right, like race in society. When white women got the right to vote in 1920 in America, Black women did not get the right to vote. Native American women did not get the right to vote. Only white women. And with that being said, at the same time, Black men were being lynched and murdered. But look at this woman, fair-skinned woman on the screen. That was the missions of Thomas Jefferson. To Sally Hemings, Jefferson had at least 4 children from Sally. She traveled with him to France when his wife didn't. All right. So Jefferson had his Black family and his white family. But this Black woman, named slave woman, named Sally Hemings, was also the half sister of his wife. All right. And so it just showed the sin and degradation, the breakdown in the family, because in America, it was against the law for a Black person to marry because of slavery. And then after marriage, they continue to break up homes. How they break up homes? Through the welfare system. The welfare system awarded a woman a larger check if she had children outside of wedlock. They would create breeding homes called ghettos in major American cities where your gangs would now develop, where they would supply with weapons. They created the ghettos, they created the dysfunctional families, and now they separate the men out because the woman could not get any support if she had a man in the house. So this created the gang scenario in the 1950s and 60s as they began to develop that continued to break up the family while incarcerating the males, and the lynchings went on as well. And so Black females need to understand that while they're going to college and getting their advanced degrees, they need to help their sons and help their brothers, their cousins, and their other Black males become more economically stable and further their education to support their families. Because education is the means of social mobility, allow one to go from transgenerational poverty to transgenerational wealth. By education, they can go from one vocation that allow them to have a substantial income merely by their educational level. So let's deal with education and let's deal with violence in the family and realize the systemic system set up to destroy Blacks and other minorities. They will always succumb fighting one another and also being exploited by political parties who also turn us against one another. I know I said a mouthful as usual. I pause for the cause. Go for it.
And before you come in, Dr. McPhee, just want to remind everybody that you're listening to the Trumpet Sound Network, coming to you from the beautiful Bahama Islands. My goodness, today is just a wonderful time, a wonderful place, as we say. The Bahamas is where God lives. If you don't believe me, come and see. Dr. McPhee, what you saying about all of that today?
That's a whole lot.
That is a whole lot. That is a whole
lot. But it's basically, Bishop, exactly what we've been talking about. I have come to the conclusion that and it's sad to say this because we're on the Trumpet Network and people all over the world are listening to us. I just feel like pastors have lost their power. They've lost their will, sensibility, and awareness of trying to do as the Lord has commanded us to do. We are compromising too much. We're not telling the true story as we used to. Wrong is wrong. There are standards for all leaders, including pastors, including deacons and evangelists. We've become slack in our worship. Evangelism is a thing of the past. Evangelists are titles without production, without fever, and flavor. We have become fearful of the world instead of killing fear, because Jesus Christ has not given us the spirit of fear, sound mind. We have lost that desire to change what we see, and we know that it is wrong, but we are afraid to say it. Our help comes from the Lord. If that ain't true, then all of us are wasting our time. He lifts us out of the dungeons of nothing so that we could tell the story that the dungeons will not be filled with lost souls. So it's a fight.
Doc, gentlemen, how can we get this story into the schools? We're talking about the state of violence in the school, locally and internationally. All right, we want to put this in a practical sense. How do we put this in a practical sense? What is the reasons for these killing and violence in the school every day? Mass shooting on the jobs. I heard the bishop hit on these robots, and young men are being trained to combat at an early age, at age 12, 18. How do we tie that together? Something is missing in the family. We are sending these kids to school, and we sending our kids to school, road kids to school, and they causing all kind of problems. So what I'm saying in a nutshell, how can we put this together in a practical sense? What is the reason for this state of violence in the school?
Let me answer you quickly and simply. I've been a teacher, taught for 25 years plus.
I'm still wanting to go on this thing that
the
church really needs to get. I don't know. Okay. I think we lost. Men but and women of God are following the teachings of the Bible. Of course, again, I go back to that scripture that reminds us that these children are born with this affinity for wickedness. And if I were in Lizzie Norton, I would say they got this capacity for wickedry.
And that's because of the nature. You're born a sinner. You're not born a saint, and you're born to die. And the evidence that you're a sinner, that everyone that's born, even though you grow older, you're in the process of meeting your final end one day. And because of that, every child, though pretty as they may be, however we may dress it up, they are a sinner. And they're just like Adam, they're wicked from birth, and time will show you how wicked they really are.
Can we find a way, Bishop? Because obviously it's got to start at the home, and you said the home is already messed up because the mothers are running the home when God never designed it that way. They go ahead and they do what they want to do. So the women are running homes, and the women were never designed to rule the homes. And so, as you said, I saw on my TV this week, my God, one of our great sports heroes out with his son walking around like a little girl. And I said, but we've lost this. And we fail to realize that a baby lion is going to grow into a grown lion, and he's going to roar. You're not going to change that lion, as you said. So we're born in sin, and then we talk about shaped in iniquity. We're sinners because, or we sin because we are sinners, and so we've got to fix that. And there's a scripture that I don't know if the church has gotten, reminding us about the power. Dr. McAfee started talking about the Lord has given us not to be fearful, but he's given us love, but he didn't put the power part in there. You gotta don't leave that out. He's given us a spirit of love and of power.
And a sound mind.
That's right. And the church somehow grew afraid, Bishop, of that powerful thing.
Well,
Jesus said, I give you authority over all the power of the enemy. And ain't nothing, excuse me, Nuttin, should be able to stand against you. But like we haven't gotten it. And so our children, and I just thank you again so much. I appreciate you, Bishop. They've become filled with every kind of wickedness, Romans says, and evil and greed and depravity, because they have training. While we're not paying attention to them, they're in their rooms locked up, and we're happy that our children.
All right, I guess you're freezing up on me there.
Rooms, but we don't know. And directed by other folk. I don't want to throw my hands and say, what are we going to do?
Well, if I can.
Are you with me?
Yes, if I can, let me kind of pull all this in together. I know Bishop McPhee, he wants to go and identify the ills in the church. I know we're looking at the sins of man and his depravity. But what we're looking at is that in my psychology classes, I teach the idea that man, even though he's wicked, is tabula rasa. That's a French term, means we're born with a blank slate. We have no language, we know nothing. We learn through our senses how to speak, sound, and volume, and see our instinct to think how to suck, allow us to eat. The child sucked from his mother, right? We know nothing. But all of our outside stimuli, all of our environmental factors, the family that we were raised up in, our family of orientation, the type of government we have, our poverty or affluentness, all of these things help shape a person's behavior. It doesn't necessarily change their personality, because that develops over time. But I think what the church needs to do is first identify where is the enemy attacking it. Once you can identify the enemy's attacks, then we can counter. Because all these things are not just internal for the nature of man. The nature of man being exploited by external factors. Case in point, let me show you the screen right here. Let me share something else with you. In my many years of teaching psychology, Sigmund Freud, all right, many people herald him as some great one. But Sigmund Freud was a pervert in the highest degree. He had a lot of phobias, all right? And he had a lot of mental issues, especially when it pertained to men. Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychology, he introduced the Oedipus complex in his sexual dynamics. And with this here is about the father, all right, the threat to the son. He hypothesized, taken from Babylonian mysticism and Freemasonry, that the son lusted after his mother. That's the Oedipus complex is all about. And his job was to get rid of his father. I won't go into detail how Freud came up with all these ideas, but he laid the foundation, all right, how, the sexual conflict, what happened in the family. After that, what happened, another guy came in the 1940s and 50s, and the church needs to know natural knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Without the two, it will always be inept. The inability to discern what the problem is, to attack it naturally and spiritually with the power. You need both realms of functioning, all right? Jesus heals some people, right, by laying hands on them, but others, by healing them, he casts devils out of them. So you need to know when to deal with the devils, and you need to know when to heal. You need to know how to fight spiritually when it comes to spiritual warfare, and then you need to call weapons of our warfare you're not carnal, they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. But you also need to know how to deal with things naturally. This guy right here, Alfred Kinsey. Most pastors don't know much about Kinsey, but everything we're talking about right now, libido, same-sex marriages, transgender, bisexuality, homosexuality, it was introduced 80 years ago in the 1940s, right? By Kinsey. It's finally Western culture is promoting it globally through the United Nations and all the Western nations. If you
Because we
understand,
just catching up.
pardon me,
You said we just catching up now after from 1948. I admit I'd never heard that.
yes, well, that's the problem I'm saying. Most preachers know hardly anything about natural history, and they don't understand the root of the things that are going on. How are you going to fight your government and they believe in these things? How are you going to address them besides rebuke them and say, we're going to cast devils out of you? You either come at a level that they can understand, share where their systems of belief came from and how they perverted the culture, and say, you're not going to let the Bahamas become perverted like America and all the other Western European countries, as perverted as they are, back to their roots. All right, gender bending. What about cartoons? These are people in music industry, rock and roll people involved, whether it be Snoop Dogg or Grace Jones, who was a Pentecostal pastor's daughter, Grace Jones, all right, a one-man show. Prince. Children are being brainwashed. Look at this man right here, the fall guy, a guy trying to breastfeed a baby. Got another one here, guy, Ozzy, breastfeeding a baby. These are things our kids are watching and being in tune to, and we'll quote Bible verses to them. We don't know what's going on in our own universe naturally. So how are we going to deal with it spiritually? All right. So I know the Bible and I understand that, but unless you know the natural components as well, you still be quoting the Bible, but not really addressing the problems with your government, with your family, and especially with your children, who's getting all these cues and messages that they can't interpret properly because the parents themselves and the church leaders don't know what is going on in their communities. David Bowie over here.
Marvin Gaye?
Well, we're talking about Marvin Gaye. You got David Bowie over here, came on the song in the 60s. Hey, babe, let's take a walk on the wild side, you know? And that's what we're talking about, way back, transgender, right? Homosexuality, busting slack. So these are the things that church people need to be informed about in culture that's going on. Another example, cartoons. All right, here's the fall guy dressed in a breast right here. All right, right here, halters, etc. The bottom of the screen there, masturbation, bondage. These are cartoons your kids are watching, right? And they're getting also supplemented by this here through video games and a whole lot of other things. You got anal sex going on right here. You have all other things going on. Beavis Butthead right here in the background. I know they're a bit older, but their cartoons now even more perverse than these here.
Yes, sir.
You got a girl here being murdered by a firing squad, a child killing his doll right here. And then you have the occult, the 6 5-pointed star right here, and Harry Potter witchcraft occultism. These are devils and spiritual entities coming to the homes, and we're asking questions. Why there's so much rebellion? Because our children is being seduced by devils on every front, and no one is aware of what's happening, what's coming in their homes. We're preaching the Bible to them, but we don't know nothing's going on. I mean, it's a highway into most Christians' homes, and they're oblivious what's going on in their families. You got to do more than just quote the Bible. You got to know how the enemy is attacked. You need to know his strategies. Programs like The View in America, liberal program designed to destroy and emasculate men, sick the women on, let's sick dogs, right? Destroy males. We have, I had a student tell me about 20 years ago, she said, Mr. Harris, I'm a vampire. I kind of brushed it off. But you know what? A lot of students, they were involved in all types of sexual activity, especially females, during their menstrual periods. And what I'm saying, this is all types of stuff that's going on right before our very eyes, and the church is oblivious to it. Children entertained by demons at night, needing deliverance, and no one knows what to do. That's when we need the power. But before you exercise the power, you know what demons you're dealing with and how to close the door. If you cast out devils and they come out and you don't deal with the entrance points, they're going to come back. And the Bible says 7 times more. Worse going to come back. So you need to understand the tactics. How about the devils of death? Feeders, people eating themselves to death. Look at the woman in the top left. Look at the anorexic bulimia. How you deal with these spirits of death? suicidal tendencies. You got people demascating themselves, tattoos, and defacing themselves to all type of animal-like looking creatures. Have you ever heard of anorexia bulimia? How about tribalism with all their tattoos? How about dollism? There are white females, primarily white and Asians, running around because animism. They're running around making themselves up like baby dolls. A psychological delusion. These are all types of devils that got to be dealt with, but most Christians, if you're not exposed to them, not aware. How about the emasculation of women and transgender athletes? These are all bodybuilding women. All right. You may not be exposed to it in the Bahamas in your church, but this is becoming more and more prominent in Western culture, and it's going to be at a church near you when they open them up in your neighborhood. All right,
man. Yeah.
You have men right now coming in competing against women. They're going to destroy women's sports. The recent swimmer, the brother from South Africa, the 800 meters, setting all type of records, destroying women's sports. So we have to, your government, they shouldn't allow anyone in your country to come and compete who's a transgender against another, masquerading, a male in particular, competing with females. The preacher should be informed and understand the scientific basis and the arguments for and against this here, so they can be intellectual about it and also with much understanding and yet compassion. How about same-sex marriages? Beelzebub. Look at the women and men. All right. We have black female, Ellen. We have also Robin right here on the news. All married to, these are black females. What about what's his name on CNN? This recently got fired. Lemon. All right.
Yeah.
Donald Lemon. He was talking about white males all during the Black Lives Matter situation, and the man is married to a white male. All right.
Yeah, I know we didn't know these things.
All right. And so how in the world you gonna talk about what the church gonna be doing when we don't know what's going on ourselves? You got Robin right here. That's her wife right there. She's standing next to Obama. When they legalized same-sex marriage in America, Obama and Michelle, they put the White House in the rainbow colors because they were celebrating. They were celebrating. I'll leave that alone. Black folks need to come to some resolve concerning that. So these are the things that we need to be more informed about to articulate the biblical mandates in a logical, sequential, biblical way based on historical facts, not by emotion and not by mere preaching. Because life is a continuum. What about abortion? Right? Every argument that laid out right here that used to defend abortion is the exact same argument to use to support slavery in America. The whole issue of slavery was the issue of property, right? Blacks were property. The state cannot take your property from you. The woman argument is my property. All right. It says that, well, in the humans, blacks were not human. They were property. So like dogs and cattle and other domesticated animals, right? They say the same thing about a baby. But my original major in college in the early 70s was marine biology. And I understand that when the zygote, when it began to form, it takes about 22 years for a male to fully form through all the stages to maturity. 22 years. Or I go through all the stages of psychological developmental science. All right. And everyone is a scientist that say that it's not a human at conception is willfully ignorant, right? And what they're doing is denying the facts. It's called cognitive dissonance because it doesn't want to support their conclusions. In other words, it's a male, right, or female, XXXY. All right. It goes through prenatal development. It goes through early childhood development. Before that, it's toddler, right? It's newborn. And then it continues on to puberty. And guess what? The woman continues on to about 50s. She goes to a period where her body begins to shut down. That's a continual development stage. We never stop developing until we die. That's when you stop developing. It's called old age, termination point. But every scientist knows this here. The question is, why did they willfully ignorant of the fact that it's a continuum of continued development all into termination? Okay? And so all these lame arguments used by women that here you see on your screen, aborted fetuses. It's to murder the firstborn child. They did this in ancient times to Moloch Asteroid. In ancient time, the Jews even did it. And
Yes,
that's
sir.
what these leaders, my hair leaders of the world, Bohemian Grove, all the leaders for the Bushes and all the other families. You remember Jeffrey Epstein and his island? All the stuff that went on there, no one knows about. The dynamics is we're talking about all forms of perversion. Unless we know these things, how are we going to address government? Some of your leaders have probably gone to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Some of your leaders are also involved in pedophiles and homosexuality and all of these things. How are you going to address it when it's right in your own house, your own government, in your own families, and in your church with some of your pastors? And you're
Oh,
talking about
Lord.
speak it out? Who's going to
Yeah.
speak out when almost everybody's compromised?
Oh, my God. Well, you're listening to Trumpet Sound Network, and I tell you, this is an eye-opening, revolutionary. I think you put in all your eye drops here to grab a hold of this tonight. What we're hearing today, Bishop, this is just so crazy because we're looking for solutions. Everybody wants solutions, but don't want to appreciate that we got this major problem. And the problem is, I just need you we're winding down, Dr. Mack, if you can get in. We're winding down today, but we need some practical guidelines, and we need to, like we say in some of our cases, we need to enact the appropriate protocols to get some of this stuff done. And I think one of the things is that the body of Christ, the leadership in particular, has got to get away. And as you said, maybe some of these conferences you're having ought not to be about how to enlarge in your church, but how to understand. Here we go. This is it. Thank you, Jesus, about
Amen.
understanding the times.
I'm here. Say it again.
Understanding the times. You hear? You hear
Yes,
what I'm saying? So the men of who's it? Issachar were able to handle things because they understood the times. The body of Christ today is not understanding the time. And Bishop, you convicted so many of us. I think I'd about to send half of the church to hard labor because of what you done. We don't know about the cartoons our children are watching. We have no idea. And incidentally, Bishop, you're talking about The View and talking about Robin and all of them. We got one of our basketball superstars the other day introduced a wife to the Bahamas, and everybody was so excited to see her. We congratulated her. One of the
really?
yeah, Doc, and she changed team and all of that from Grand Bahama, really, and she produced her wife. And I say, oh my God, look at where we are. And we're happy. We're happy to big it up on the news today. So I don't know, Doc, maybe we don't understand the times.
Because you don't understand the time. Why? Because blindness. Those who don't understand the time, not only they blind, but they're being seated for judgment. Hell is about to come to earth, and they're going to be part of it, and they don't know it. They expect to be raptured out of here, but I tell you this here, Papa's coming quick, but he's going to bring that licking stick. He came with a little rub board, all right? A rub board. They're cleaning. Peter said it this way, judgment will first begin in the house of God. And the churches, if they are applauding this here, they tell you that they are compromised. They're almost like Esau, so their birthright. They better be hot rather than cold. They have to make a definitive stand because they can't stand now when there's no conflict. They're not going to stand when all hell busts loose in the earth. The day of judgment is at hand. If the nation does not repent, then God only had one other alternative, as he did with Sodom, as he did with Gomorrah, is to decimate it. And that's what the book of Revelation is all about. All these churches talking about rapture, rapture, rapture. Amos said it this way in the Amos chapter 5, starting at verse 18. He says, woe be unto them who desire the day of the Lord, for the day of the Lord shall be darkness and no light in it. It should be though a man ran from a lion and ran to the arms of a bear. Though a man ran into the house, laying on the wall, and a serpent bit him. All right? They're not going anywhere. Their theology is already jacked up and messed up because when Jesus came, they didn't know who he was. When John the Baptist came, they didn't know who he was. And Jesus about to come again, and the church today still don't know who he is.
Oh, my God.
Could I say something, Bishop Harris, Bishop Josie?
Yeah.
Could you say, am I right to say that a lot of brainwashing is going on and mind control is going on and is happening in the church?
It's everywhere. The
Yeah.
best effective way to brain someone is to do it and they don't know you're doing it to them. If they know you're doing it to them, there will be resistance. And so the most effective way to manipulate people is to deceive them and let them buy into their own lies, or seduce them and let them feel powerless. They can't do nothing about it, or silence them by fear and intimidation by social forces, by their culture, or by the government, so they will keep silent. But if somebody don't cry out, you can kiss your nation goodbye. You can kiss your country goodbye, because the Lord is coming and he's not concerned about anybody but those who are righteous. That's who he's going to save. Everybody else, they got to deal with his judgment. Everybody. And where's he
Oh
going
my
to
God.
start? According to Ezekiel chapter 9, he said, begin in my sanctuary. Begin with the ancient of men, the elder men, with the preachers, and slay every woman and every child. Slay them all, and spare not none. This is exactly what is done in the book of Revelation.
Oh
God is not
Lord.
playing.
Oh Jesus. Dr. McAfee?
He hasn't come back on yet. I don't know why.
Okay.
I know he has some problems with his audio, and his signal was probably pretty weak, so he hasn't come back
Okay.
on.
Bishop
Well, I
Joe,
think it's about
you can do what you have to do. You know, you can wrap it up when you're ready.
yeah, okay. Well, Bishop, I want to say thank you so much again. This has been an enlightening experience, and I just pray that everybody would have got an opportunity to, who got an opportunity to listen, would share it with a friend. This is timely information, valuable information, and exhortation. And I think that those of us that lead reformations and those of us that lead churches, we ought to come to an understanding that in this season, if you understand the times, you've got to ensure that your people do the same. These young people in your schools, in your churches, who are attending colleges and who are in grad school and all the other type of things, they're getting all this information. They've been exposed to so much on your television. And I think, again, to remind you that when your children are in those rooms locked up and you think they're studying, yeah, they're studying, but studying what? And so you got to have
They're on social
people
media. They're playing
yeah.
video games. They're being
Yeah.
introduced to concepts and things that the parents don't even
Yeah.
understand. Listen to music. They're opening
Yeah.
the door for their own demise and deception. Blasphemous words from the
Yeah.
father of blasphemy, Satan, through the rap music and all the vulgarity they use. And that is becoming the norm. And so
Oh,
this is the reasons why there's violence, because there's violence in the music. There's violence in
Yeah.
the games. There's violence in
Mhm.
everything they do. There's violence in
Yeah.
the neighborhoods. There's violence in the family, how the husband is treating the wife. There's divorce that's going on. Children are succumbing to incest in the family, violence there, rape even in the family. With all these things going on, how can the children survive? What can they do?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
preachers don't know. The prophets can't see. They're blind. The preachers, they're preaching, but they're not teaching. God didn't ask us to preach to the church. He said, preach to the world. We got to teach the people of God how to, because they don't know how.
Yeah.
So let
Yeah.
somebody teach them how they're going to do it. We spend all of our time preaching, but not instructing. He said, go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them. Teach all nations. We
but
have
Bishop,
spent all of our time on antics and delivery and hermeneutics and cultural expressions, but not on substance. We don't know what is going on, what our children are going through, so disconnected, and we can't even talk to our children because we speak a foreign language to them because they don't know what you're talking about, and we can't talk to them, but I can.
Mhm.
Bishop, you're not fair, Bishop. You're not fair. You're not nice, man. Are
So
you saying
sorry,
that
so sorry.
the prophets ain't seeing, Bishop?
Hey, Bishop Josie, Bishop
You can't
Josie,
be saying that.
Bishop Josie.
Yes,
What
sir.
happened? Bishop Harris is getting too spiritual, so folks are getting scared. They're afraid he's getting too spiritual. He's
Oh,
getting too
Jesus.
close.
Oh, man. Well, listen, Bishop, it's
It's a
been
beautiful
good as
thing.
usual. Wonderful,
You
wonderful.
ask for solutions. Ask for solutions.
Oh,
We
hey,
must first.
that's a beautiful thing, Bishop. All right. I think the church need to be more spiritual minded and less carnal minded. See?
And
Oh,
more
my.
informed, more
And more
informed.
informed.
We are
More
not to
informed.
be ignorant, not
Right.
be ignorant of Satan's devices, lest he should take advantage of us.
Oh, my
Right.
God. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Bishop Harris. We just bless the Lord for you. You've been listening to Trumpet Sound Network all the way from the beautiful island of the Bahamas.
Trumpet Sound Radio, broadcasting live from our studio in Nassau, the Bahamas, and throughout the world. And now, another 55 minutes of the best in gospel music. Trumpet Sound Radio, broadcasting live from our studio in Nassau, the Bahamas, and throughout the world. And now, another 55 minutes of the best in gospel music.